Hey folks, what's up? Lex here. Yesterday, EA dropped their deep dive blog for presentation, and even though I am mainly a franchise focused guy, presentation goes hand in hand with franchise mode, and so we're going to go over this blog. It's not a long blog, so this shouldn't be a super long video, but I wanted to go over what I thought were the important parts and kind of give my thoughts on how they were implemented. So the first thing they talk about are stadium exteriors. Now you'll be able to see the exterior of a stadium before a game for some stadiums, and this kind of just builds on immersion. It's not like a lights out kind of feature here. It's nice though to be able to look outside the stadium at a certain point in the day and just kind of I don't know, build immersion of where you're playing. I guess it kind of separates games a little more. If you're someone who plays a lot of games and you're traveling half the season to other stadiums, I guess just being able to see the exterior of the team that you're playing, or maybe it's a rivalry game, so you're seeing the exterior of your rival stadium, and it just kind of maybe builds upon the rivalry a little bit more. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here. I don't think this is a bad feature necessarily. I just think maybe it's just not something that is going to blow anybody away. It's going to be a nice little addition, and obviously it looks really good from the pictures and the little bit of video that we saw from Mills Gaming TV's presentation on Twitch last night. But still, it just kind of, it is what it is. It's stadium exteriors, they look great. I did want to bring up the fact that there are no people around, which makes it look a little weird. At least in the stuff that we've seen so far, there are no people around. So it does look a little weird, but maybe you could stretch your imagination by saying, well, they filmed it at an earlier part in the day when nobody was around, or I don't know, something like that. Or maybe every single person's inside the stadium now. Something like that. I mean, you see it on broadcasts where they show an exterior of the stadium and there is nobody around. Or sometimes there will be people walking around, so I don't know how that's going to play out. Maybe that'll work for some stadiums more than it works for others. I guess we'll just have to wait to see. It also kind of sounds like this won't be for every stadium. They actually listed some stadiums that were included, and the stadiums that will be in there for sure are Buffalo, Chicago, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Miami, Atlanta, New England, and Tennessee. So any team beyond that, it's kind of a toss-up. Mills last night said that it wasn't limited to this, but it surely sounds like they're not going to do every single stadium, and I suppose this means they're probably not going to do any exteriors for the created stadiums either, but maybe they'll surprise us with those. Next, we're moving on to 3D broadcast graphics, and this is something that a lot of people were kind of giving Mills a hard time for in the chat when he was talking about this. In Operation Sports, a lot of people are like, oh, what's the big deal with 3D broadcast graphics? And I agree to an extent. It's definitely a flashy thing that adds more flash than it does actual substance to immersion. But I think the cool information that we got about this is that this is not going to happen for every single game. Obviously, these graphics are stunning. They look awesome, but were they necessary? I don't know about that. I don't know how much resources this took out. I don't know all that information, so I can't say one way or another whether it was worth it necessarily. But obviously this was a big undertaking by the team, and they not only made the 3D graphics for all the NFL teams, they made them for all the relocation teams as well. Now, before I read anything here, I do want to say that in the blog it says 50+ expansion teams, and this has led some to believe that expansion is a secret feature that they haven't told us about yet in franchise mode. But I want to say, and again, you can believe what you want to believe, I think they just meant relocation and they said expansion, because in Mills' stream last night he says relocation and he says expansion too, and I think it's just our minds kind of, I don't know, make those words mean the same thing sometimes. But I highly doubt expansion is going to be a part of this mode, or they would have led with that, because that's a pretty big feature, expanding the league beyond the 32 teams. So I wanted to read this line to you because it kind of doesn't make sense to me, but I wanted to read it to you as it is, just so you can interpret it as you want. But it says, the team logos will be utilized for our day games and expansion teams, and the team helmet assets are shown during primetime and postseason games to make those types of broadcasts feel different. So to me, this obviously sounds like they're not going to have these 3D logos for every single game, that they're going to save them for special games, primetime games, stuff like that. Which I'm all for, because I think we need to have that differential between games. I would have much preferred an overall score bug overhaul for different games, and different pop-ups, different style pop-ups for different kind of games. Just something to make it feel like it's a different broadcast. I'm certainly someone who pushes for, we need a separate broadcast presentation package for the AFC, for the NFC, one for primetime games, one for playoff games, one for the Super Bowl, one for preseason games, all that. I'm 100% behind that kind of presentation. This at least is a start to the, differential of games with adding these 3D logos. And yes, they are very impressive and they're grandiose, so it makes sense to put these on primetime games if that's what the article is saying. Again, it's not super clear and I'm not 100% on it, but that's kind of the impression that I get. Alright, so we're moving on to probably the most controversial thing in this whole blog for me. It's the pregame and halftime flows. So they talk about how they've implemented these 3D graphics into their pregame and halftime shows, and really kind of pushing that 3D element. We obviously know what the pregame is going to consist of, but the halftime is a little bit different now. What they've done is they have a 3D map, and they'll go across the map to the different games that are going on at that time, and they'll update you on what happened in those games or what's happening in those games. Now those games are going to play against your game in the sense of time. So they're going to be, it's not going to be, oh, it's at halftime, every single game's at halftime. They will have different points in their game depending on how quickly you play through your game. They'll also have stats along with the scores, and it's, to be honest, I'm kind of split on it. On one hand, I do like it because I like the thought of immersing us in our league and showing us other games. I like that thought process, right? But I kind of question doing this during a halftime presentation when it's making the halftime show, even longer. For a guy like me who controls multiple teams and plays multiple games every week, this is going to be kind of difficult to sit through. And I like to sit through presentation because I know that they actually record data to see who is skipping through presentation and who isn't. So because I like presentation, I stick through pretty much everything. And I want to stick through this, but I have a feeling having to go through this, for all the games that I play during a week is going to be interesting. I just think that maybe they should have done this as a weekly wrap-up show. This seems perfect for a weekly wrap-up show. And it kind of goes back to an interview that Ben Hallmiller did, and their thought process is that that weekly wrap-up show needs to have highlights. And I don't think that's true. I don't think we need highlights, because in NFL 2K5, and some people don't know this, those highlights in those games are pre-canned animations with reskins of players. So they're not like, it's not like it's actually happening in the game. They're just showing us something from their canned animation lists, right? If you play that game long enough, you'll know that you'll see same animations over and over again eventually. And they don't want to necessarily do that. They want to get to the point where they have the tech to be able to actually simulate a game and have it play out and be able to capture animations and stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to ever happen, because that seems like it's like distant future tech. I don't know, maybe it's not, but we don't need highlights. What we need is information at the end of the week. Who won, who lost, what the stats were, who got injured, were there any big trades or free agency signings. That's the stuff we need to know at the end of the week to kind of catch us up on the rest of the league so that we're informed and immersed. And I feel like this halftime show is just going to be too long. Most people are going to end up skipping it. So it's eventually going to be a waste of time and money and manpower that they could have just taken this idea, put it at the end of the week, and informed us all a lot better too. So I don't know. Maybe I'm off base with that. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. I personally get it, and then I don't get it. I get why they did it, but I don't get the reasoning behind it. And this is kind of one of those things where they might go, well, we gave them what they want and they still didn't like it. That's not the case at all. It's just you got to be smart with your implementation. Maybe they couldn't do a weekly wrap-up show still. I don't know. Maybe they still have some things to work out with that. But it just seems to make a whole lot more sense to me to do this as the weekly wrap-up show instead of making the halftime show more drawn out, instead of focusing halftime show efforts on better highlights or calling out stats, making the commentary with the halftime show more dynamic and stuff like that. And for those of you who like to really go into the replays and, you know, mess around with the cameras and stuff like that, there are 2 new cameras in replay, orbital and overhead. So if you really like messing around in replay, you'll be able to get those 2 options from now on. Alright, let's move on to the final section of this blog, and it's a very interesting section indeed. It's all about commentary callback stories. So commentators will now refer to prior events to build stories throughout the game. This could be events that happened earlier in the game, this could be situational events, this could be events that happened last year, and I'm going to read some examples here to you from the blog directly. It says, here's an example of a callback story of a moment. It's 3rd and long, and the offense is backed up against their own end zone. Charles mentions that he would try to get some room for the punter by running the ball or possibly catching the defense off guard with a screen. Based on your call and the results of the next play, let's say it was an incomplete pass, Brandon will reference what Charles said before about not wanting to be compressed in your own end zone. Charles will respond, reiterating that passing backed up is a gamble, and now your punter will have to get the punt away out the back of his own end zone with the defense able to put more pressure on him, which is risky. So this is basically that situational moment that I was speaking of, okay, here's one thing about it. It's going to be nice. It's going to be great to have that contextual commentary going on, and we definitely need more of it. Something that does worry me, you know what? I'll talk about this after reading the next paragraph. Another instance could be Charles talking about how an opposing running back was a 1,000-yard rusher last season, and keeping him under 100 yards this game will be paramount in giving you the best chance for victory. As the game progresses, he and Brandon will reference how you are, or aren't, keeping your opponent away from that 100-yard threshold, and how it's impacting likely outcomes for this contest. So another good example of, you know, contextual commentary that I want in the game, and I'm glad it's in, and I'm not complaining about this, but I do kind of worry about the frequency of this contextual commentary. With this being the first year that they're kind of putting this into the game, I worry that it's going to repeat itself a lot. And I don't want contextual commentary to be something that people roll their eyes at or get annoyed by. So hopefully it doesn't pop up so frequently that we're just like, oh, you know, obviously he's going to say this at this point. You know, hopefully they mix it up a little more and don't make it annoying, because that's the least thing we want to do. So looking at this blog overall, just kind of freestyling my thoughts here, you know, I'm not super impressed by it. It kind of feels like the whole monkey's paw type of thing, where we got some stuff that we wanted, but maybe it wasn't implemented in the way that we wanted it to be implemented. And also, we're going to have to wait and see on these 3D graphics and kind of how it differentiates the games that we play. We want variety, right? We play so many games in this game, hundreds and hundreds of games, that we want it to be mixed up so that we're caught off guard sometimes. Sometimes we're playing a game that's a little understated. Sometimes we're playing a game that's grandiose and they're bringing out all the different highlights and all the different graphics packages and, you know, really upping the commentary and stuff like that. We want it to kind of scale like that so that it feels fresh as we play throughout a season. A lot of this is kind of a jury still out kind of situation for me. I want to see this all in action. I don't have access to the beta, so I haven't seen any of this yet. Of course, even if I did, I couldn't tell you anything about it, but I haven't seen it in action, so I don't know. So that's kind of where I'm coming from right now. I'm optimistic that these changes are going to be for the better. I do worry, though, that some of these changes were not properly implemented or implemented the best way that they could have been implemented. I think a lot of people on that halftime show are going to be, I don't know if upset's the right word, but maybe a little disappointed. And hopefully the powers that be don't look at our disappointment for the halftime show treatment and take that to mean that we're just never going to be pleased. You know, you can't just give us something, expect us to be pleased, and then walk away. You really have to understand why people aren't pleased about certain things. It's not that people, you know, some people are being negative just to be negative, but a lot of people, especially people in my comment section, bring up really valid points. They bring up good points, and it's not that we want to hate on the game. It's not that we want the game or the developers to be like, oh, they're never happy, like has already been said. It's just that we want this to be done right, so that when we play the game, we're having the best time possible with the game. I want to be honest with you, I want to play this game, and I want to have that feeling where I never want to put it down. And so we want to get it to that spot. We want to get franchise mode to that spot, because we're franchise players. Most of us watching these videos and all this, you know, discussing this kind of stuff, we're franchise players. Whether it be on our own or in a 32-man league, we want immersion. We want it done right. You know, we want our mode to succeed. We love football. Obviously, this is the only football game out there, so we want this game to be as good as it possibly can, and we want to give our input back to the developers. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think of the blog down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you like these vids. Hit that little bell notification thing right there, because that'll let you know for sure when my videos pop up. I try to do a stream every morning or so, and then one video a week that's kind of like this. And until next time, this is Lex signing off.